I will never forget the jury foreman was this stout man. He looked like a very strong man. And he started crying in the courtroom. And you could see the other jurors just sink. And I leaned over and I said, "You're not happy. Obviously, I'm not either, but can you tell me about it?" And he said, "We would have given him life. No question." And he was in tears. And the rest of them were you could just tell they were sick. So that's another thing you don't get to control. You don't get to control who the judge is over the court. And this was Judge Henry Wade Jr. I'll call him out. It was disgusting. It was unbelievable. And so it made you wonder, did he sympathize with this guy? I mean, how on earth would you give someone 20 years for that? And when you're a defendant, if you get some stinky ass corrupt judge, it still sucks, but at least you can appeal. You might have grounds for an appeal. When you're a victim and you get that, you have nothing. So what do? We spent years protesting his early release. Even if somebody gets a life sentence, let's say he got a life sentence. If there's any chance for parole, it isn't over for a victim. And so if you have a loved one murdered, you don't get peace when there's an opportunity for parole, because every time there's a hearing, this guy's or gal's going to get up there and talk about why they're a good candidate and blah, blah, blah. And you've got to go and remind these people of the horrors that were committed and that there's an ongoing threat. If you're a psychopath or you have an abundance of psychopathic traits, they don't stop, So the goal was to at least keep him in prison until the kids were 18, because you didn't want him having any right to have access to them. Fortunately, protesting parole, we had to do it several times. It worked. But the catch is, if somebody does their full time and they get out, they don't have conditions. Now, he had to register as a sex offender, but he moved into a lovely house, a very nice house in a gated community. And he was probably working for the family business. I mean, I think he just kind of went back to normal life, well, as it had been before. And she gets to look over her shoulder for the rest of her life. So recently on TikTok, I saw a QR code to request protesting an early release of a murderer. And it was a terrible murder. And it just stirred this up for me. I just remember this. I do remember protesting parole for a few offenders along the way and seeing the strain it causes. You can't have peace. I don't believe in closure. I think closure is a bullshit word, especially when you've lost a loved one, through death, and especially if it's a murder. Closure is a stupid word, but you might be able to have some peace. You can grieve and you never get over it. Your grief might become less intense, but every time you have to protest early release, it just reopens the wounds. You're starting to heal. Let's just reopen that. Let's just cut you back open again. Because we have to go here. We have to go through this process of convincing you that the life sentence that, in this case, this parole protest or early release petition that I saw, okay, this was a murder. He got life. He worked hard for that life sentence. I mean, he really earned that life sentence. So give it to him. Stop making people jump through hoops to keep people with a life sentence in prison. It's absurd and it's cruel. I looked up the case. I did my homework. I signed that petition, and I thought it was very creative that they have a QR code and they have a campaign. But my God, why should you have to do that? I don't understand how it's still this way, that you show so much more mercy to offenders than victims. Why are you putting victims through this? The loved ones of murder victims especially, or, child predators should never get out. Why are you letting them out? Why is this even a conversation? Why is this even an option? It's maddening